listening, loving, curious,
I only like
history, business, biology, garlic, peppery, short story. Garlic pepper is a spice.
one. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Garland Pepper Presents podcast. I am your host, Gary Fox. Garland lets me do this, and I'm grateful. He doesn't pay me. He's not, he's not generous, but he's allowing me to do this, and it's really helpful. It's like, it's a college. Oh, there's a guy right here. You see this guy? See this guy right here? This is Tim Kniffin. Ladies and gentlemen, Tim Kniffin is one of my favorite actors in the whole wide world. I mean, uh, I'm just, and I haven't seen him act in 30 years. But I knew him as a friend, and I remember once him and his girlfriend took on characters, and it was just a decade prior. So they did this anachronistic reality where they were in the 70s. Of course, this was the 80s. 80s was very different than the 70s, especially in Santa Rosa, where you really did pop with the times. And he came on in the morning. And throughout the day, we were just kind of, I don't know what we were doing, but we kept kind of being in contact. We were maybe Papa Ron's or something, but we kept being in contact. And I think you ended up over at our house or something, but you never fucking left character, ever. And I was just like, holy shit, this is the best actor ever. Because you were nailing shit that I grew up with, because you're younger than me, a little bit. And
Mm-hmm.
you were just nailing it. And I was just like, holy shit, that's hilarious. And I really want to see you act, and it's obvious that you're good at it. I mean, you've been
Thank you.
doing it forever. How many years?
I started the summer before 8th grade.
Yeah.
So, I was probably 13 or something like that, whatever that is. But it's funny, in grade school, they were doing a production of Oliver, and they asked me if I wanted to audition for a speaking role, and I was like, no, thank you. No, I'll just be in the chorus.
Yeah.
And we had two shows, and the first night I didn't feel like going, and my mom said, "Don't you have a show tonight?" And I said, "Yeah, I don't think I'm going to go. There's plenty of people."
Oh my God, that's the worst thing ever. Now that you're
And the next night I showed up, and the teacher said, "Tim, where were you last night?" I said, "Oh, I didn't feel like going last night." She said, "Well, we're glad you're here today." Oh, thank you.
Have you ever missed a show since?
No, I came close once.
Really sick or something?
Well, it's funny. I just got a flu shot for the first time since 2013, and the reason I hadn't gotten a flu shot since 2013 is I think I got affected, and I got the flu shot the day before a show called A Couple of Blaggards in Petaluma at this theater called Cinnabar Theater. Such a fun show. Two Irish guys in a little band. What?
You ran that?
What's
You
that?
ran the Cinnabar for a while.
Oh yeah, I've done quite a few shows there. They've been very sweet to me. But I was warming up before the show, and I had some sort of reaction. I don't know whether it was a flu shot or not. It probably wasn't, but coincidentally. And so I was backstage, and my cohort actor Stephen, I was shaking. I was just white. He said I looked 80 years old. And artistic director came back, and it's like, if you don't want to do it, and I was like, and I was really dizzy too, and so I decided to give it a shot, and it was really great. It was this Irish show, and we sing these Irish tunes, and I didn't know any of these tunes before the show, and just happened to be that particular night, this row of women from Ireland in their like 60s, they're sitting out there, and I'm like hanging on to stuff so I won't fall down at first. We go to sing the first song, which I had never heard of until we researched it and found it. And we start singing it, and I see the row of women in the audience singing along with me. And somehow that like perform some sort of medicine, trance or something like that, I was fine the rest of the show, because they were just like, they were
Wow.
just so happy that
Wow.
we were singing this song that they probably hadn't heard in the States,
Yeah.
or something. I don't
Yeah.
know. It was kind of magical. So anyway,
It's
I don't
wonderful.
know how we got on flu shots, but I just got my flu shot. Yeah, and no ill effects this time. So
This last one, I got a little funky for a couple days.
you did actually,
Yeah,
huh?
yeah, I got a little funky for a couple days, and it's just like, because you're getting the flu. It's a minor flu, and you should be able to get over it, right?
Yeah.
And that's right, and that's what happened. But it wasn't pleasant. Like it was, lethargic for a couple days, a little kind of like you said, dizzy, and
Oh,
eh,
really?
not feeling quite right. Yeah, and then it went away, and so hopefully I don't get the extension of what that was because that wasn't great in the small scale, and that's the idea is you don't want the freight train.
Yeah. Hopefully, it was a momentary bit of good suffering for you.
Mhm.
Yeah. Um, especially right now.
Yes. So are you able to act right now, or everything's closed?
Yeah. For me, it has been. I did one day of an on-camera thing, which was both exciting and nerve-wracking. But everyone seemed to be taking the right precautions. But there are all these people there. I didn't know any of them, from all different towns and cities, and um, seemed to work out. You know, that was a little while ago now, and but other than that, no theater thus far. Some theaters are doing some virtual stuff to
It'd be really
I would
difficult.
call
I
I would
mean,
call it moderate success. Yeah, but
yeah, it'd be really difficult. You'd have to almost think about it in terms of like theater, almost get at it like really your lighting would have to change dramatically, I think, to make it work on,
hmm
you know, because you're basically taking theater and turning it into film and missing the one beautiful element of theater, everybody's favorite part, which is the audience, you know.
yeah, yeah, the absolute. It's an absolute necessity. Yep.
Well, it appears to be for you because you're definitely a good enough actor and photogenic enough to have gone into film,
hmm
but you have chosen to stay on the stage.
Well, I I've had agents for on-camera work in every city that I've lived in since I left graduate school in Dallas. I had agents in Chicago and in Seattle and here in the Bay Area, and so my thing had always been, when I was in Seattle, it was in between shows I look for on camera work, and I would book a either a you know some independent film or a commercial or a commercial and some, we called them industrials back then. I'm not quite sure what they call them now. And
Training video.
I do on camera work, and did a film a few years ago that was pretty exciting to do. And so I make, and that would be great, because I'd make as much money in one day as I would make in 4 weeks
Right. It does
doing
pay well
a
because you
play.
can scale out, right? When
Because
when
I
you
can what?
when you put something in celluloid or pixels now,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
can scale that. You can scale that to the whole world.
All right.
And if you are a super niche thing, the world's a big place.
Mm-hmm.
So there's more value for something that is held in terms of marketability, in terms
Right.
of humanity and feeling that feeling of being on stage and, throwing out something that elicits a response. There's no way you cannot respond. And knowing that you're going to throw that out. I did Beyond Therapy.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Sure.
I did
I've
Beyond
done
Therapy.
that
And,
too.
and I'm the psychiatrist.
Uh-huh.
And I had this line in there is fuck you, cunt. Right?
Christopher Durang. That's right.
Yeah, yeah. Very aggressive line for a theater that is sitting in the country in an
Huh.
old schoolhouse. And
Where
we
was this?
in Silverton, outside of Silverton, like
Oh,
it's
okay.
Brush Creek Playhouse, and it's in an old
Good
schoolhouse.
name.
And we did that, and it was the first R-rated movie ever done in that theater, or R-rated play ever done in that theater.
Uh-huh.
And we're doing the matinee, and one of the regulars who's been going there forever and ever and ever, seasoned member, goes to church in the morning and comes to the matinee in the afternoon. She's still in her church clothes. And there's some things that lead up to that are already kind of like, oh, this isn't your normal play here, Missy. But then I do that line and I hear her go, and she shuffles up and out, and it's day,
She
right?
did. She did leave. Wow.
Left. She left, lit the theater, and I'm this. I break it. This is no longer a play. I'm a person on a stage who has offended somebody, and that's not me, right?
Yeah.
Matter of fact, it's so not me. It makes me fucking crazy when I feel like I've offended somebody.
Sure.
And so I'm there, and I'm supposed to be this heartless, kind of self-serving, creepy psychologist. And I did it. I was super creepy, and I creeped this lady out, and she left. But I still had a responsibility to the play. So after getting over that, you come back into it, and I just kind of went harder. I went, okay, well, she's gone.
Oh, good for you, Gary.
Everybody else who's here. And I held back the temptation to lick her face, because there's this point where he's just like, why don't you come back to me, And I held back the temptation to lick her face, but I was just like, I just kind of went evil all of a sudden. It was just like, and he is kind of an evil psychiatrist.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
you can always come back to me. And it was just like, I don't know. So this part of me that was just like feeling really bad for this lady. I understand where she's coming from. I grew up Mormon, and I understand the piety and the feeling of
Yeah.
being offended by the world outside, and I felt so bad for her.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I had to take that somewhere.
That's right. Because
Yeah.
there you are. It's live, and you got the rest of them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was years ago. God, I haven't acted in, I don't know, 15 years maybe. You are continually acting. What's the last play you did?
I did a play called The Humans. And I did that in San Jose, California, at a place called San Jose Stage. Great place to work. It's my first show with them. I admired them forever. And this play is incredible. It's an incredibly challenging piece, and it takes place in New York City in a basement apartment in Chinatown, real close to Ground Zero, I guess. And but the family is from Scranton, Pennsylvania, so we had the Pennsylvania dialect, Scranton, Pennsylvania dialect, and
Oh, you
everything.
did?
And it's quite dramatic and very funny too, if you do it right. And I think we did. So that's the last show I was gonna do. My next play was gonna be with them again, August Osage County, and on Friday the 13th of March, it got canceled 4 days before we were going to start rehearsals because of what everybody knows is going on right now.
Yeah.
The lovely thing is that they said when we come back to live theater, we're going to do it, and we want everybody who was cast in the show to be a part of it if possible. So that's really, really sweet of them. And yeah. I have one other show that got canceled last summer, and Shakespeare, and out in Napa, and they're planning on doing it again. So hopefully this summer we'll be able to do it. It's outdoor Shakespeare, so that's helpful towards that end. So
How many
hopefully it
Shakespeares have you
happens.
done?
What's that?
How many Shakespeares have you done? I posted one. I think it was uh, Midsummer Night's Dream. I think I posted one. It had you and Zaidi in it and several others.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. We did we did Midsummer. I've done Midsummer a couple of times. I played one of the lovers in 10th grade, and then I
Yeah,
at
that's
this
what I posted.
Napa Shakespeare Festival, I played Oberon just a few summers ago. So what a beautiful play. Done a lot of Shakespeare's now.
Yeah. Do you do
I'm
the
I
festival?
what's that?
Do you do the Shakespeare or the Renaissance Festival? Do they do any Shakespeare there?
Oh, I haven't been to the Renaissance Festival since college. I went a couple of times there. No, I've done them high school, college, graduate school, and then professionally, I've done quite a few. I'm
Did you ever
both
do Ashland?
surprised and impressed with myself with that.
Did you do Ashland for a while?
No, I never did Ashland as it stands.
They're hurting. You know, the fires before all this, they've had 2 seasons of fires, and it's all that's a bowl down there, and they're kind of at the top of the bowl, and so all the smoke just sits right there, and it's really screwed up their game. Like nobody wants to go to Southern Oregon and hang out in the summer because it's a smoke pit.
Yeah, I have a really close friend who's in the company there this year, and she, it's, I mean, we'll see what happens. And but I've been there. We went there in high school. I don't know if David went with us or not, but it was in 10th. I was in 10th grade. He was in 11th grade, so he may have gone. But that was the first time we went to Ashland, and it was a great experience. We saw like 6 shows, and it was raining outside for
Yeah.
one. They canceled it at the end of the first act, and yeah, yeah, I love that place. It's great. It's
Pretty
great.
amazing. Yeah, and the water is gross, but it's supposed to be healing. The Lithia Springs water is supposed to be good for. I drank so much one night, I got sick and just got sick because, well, it doesn't mix well with gin, apparently.
Fair enough.
Yeah, Lithia Springs water and gin, not good, not good at all. What is your favorite play you ever did?
I don't, I this is this is not a cop out, but every show that I do truly is my favorite for one reason or another. I mean, that very first Midsummer Night's Dream was great, uh, and part of what was great about that, and what I got back to, because I got kind of lost in the Shakespeare in
You went into it.
in graduate school. I got lost in it because I became too obsessed with all the different versions, the folio, the Folgers, the Arden, the where the and at some point along the line after graduate school, I lived in Seattle for 10 years. I did a couple of Shakespeare's there, but when I moved back here, something in me said, "Hey man, he's just a playwright." And playwrights are gods to me. So don't get me wrong, but he's a
He's
playwright.
amongst other gods.
He's a playwright like all the other playwrights. And so what's the problem? And then as soon as I said that, then it became exciting, and I was able to start getting the jewels out of his writing, as opposed to being frightened by all the rules that teachers of theater tend to make the mistake of scaring you with. Not all of them, but some of them. And learned a lot from all those teachers, but took them a little bit too seriously sometimes. And so it was nice to finally just kind of go. But then it's a blast. Then Shakespeare's a blast. So I love doing Shakespeare, and I love doing just about just about anything. I love doing roles where most of the time I have like the lead or a lead, and that's fine and that's great. But every once in a while I get to play a minor part, and that's even better somehow, because I get to be the great supportive Tim that I can be with the rest of the cast. I got to do an Odd Couple, and I was going to play Felix or Oscar. They couldn't figure out which, because and then at some point they said, we want you to play Felix. And I had decided that I didn't want to be that guy for that long. And so they cast me anyway as Roy the accountant. And it was a ball. It was just a ball. I could
Roy the
be
accountant. I don't even
supportive
remember.
and funny. What's that?
I don't remember him much.
Exactly. They gave me a choice of two guys. One's named Speed and the other's named Roy. And
Speed was the
and
bookie.
I could, yeah, pretty much. He's more kind of the hard line gambling type. My guy, when I saw the movie, I was like, he doesn't really move me, so I want him. And so it was really fun.
I've taken characters places they maybe shouldn't have gone sometimes, but I mean, based upon the critics, and if they were right, yes, I took them places they shouldn't have gone. But we did this play some years ago. It was a spinoff of Dickens. It was Dickens says, "Hey," to his family and friends. They're there for Christmas dinner, right? And he says, "I'm working on this play called A Christmas Carol. I want everybody to play parts." And so, because there's only so many people at the dinner table, and it's actually a pretty big play, he has people playing several different parts. And so we got to play, and I played this one several times. I got to play, but my favorite was the guys who go searching for alms, alms for the poor, and then the two gentlemen, and me and the buddy at the time, we just took it as two just flaming dandies, and we just had a blast with it. Rouged up hard, just oh hello. And it was just over the top, and it was the worst, but it was also the best. We had such a good time with it. So, after doing the play for 3 years in a row, we were just like, let's go crazy. We had a bigger theater, so we wanted to project bigger and everything. Because we were doing it in the Brush Creek, but then we went to the Grand, and the names say the difference. Actually, the Grand was.
Where is Silverton on? Is it off of 5?
Yeah, we're like 18 miles off of 5. So if you were at David's house, we'd be about 20 miles away.
Oh, okay.
Towards the mountains, great. Yeah. So it's kind of nestled up in those hills. We're nestled in the hills of Oregon. Oregon. I'm going to say it like that so other people think that's how it's said. Just trick them. So that way I'll know.
Was it the Southern California students who went to Sonoma State were starting to call they would call Sebastopol.
David would call it Sebastopol, just as a joke. I want to Sebastopol. I'm going to get me some Gravensteins.
Oh, David, he's a good guy. I've gone through a few incarnations of friendship with him, and they've all been great. And we're also fortunate that we didn't get in too much trouble during one of those incarnations. But
he used to play hard. He used to party hard, man. He used to party real. Yeah, we all did, kind of.
Yeah. Now he plays healthy and hard, and
he doesn't do anything half-ass. I mean, yeah, and I think he's just running away from depression because he's manic depressive. So he kind of just keeps going, and as long as he's healthy, he's not manic depressive. In other words, as long as he's running, as long as he's eating right, and he keeps his shit together, and he keeps that place. But it requires work for him to maintain it in a way. But he's figured out his formula, and he's pretty fucking good at it.
Yeah, he seems to be. He seems to be doing all the right things, and it's just been a joy seeing his evolution. And yeah, I love him.
Yeah, I do
Yeah.
too. Yeah, we don't talk as much as you'd think, being just across town and this, that, and the other. We do get together on occasion.
Oh,
Um,
good.
yeah, he does paellas and he invites us over and that kind of thing. And
Oh,
we do.
you lucky dog.
Oh man, yeah, it's good. Well, my daughter worked for him for a couple summers, and so
Oh,
he cooks a 6-inch plate, a 6-inch pan of paella, a 6-foot pan of paella,
I was going to
and
say those things are pretty
6-foot
huge.
pan. Yeah, I think he actually has one that's 72 inches. It may not be. It may be like, I don't know, 60 inches, but it's huge. It's a huge pan, and it's pretty deep. And so, you try to project out when you're making a dish like that. It takes 45 minutes to an hour to make, right? So you have to project. Hopefully, I have the guests, but he doesn't always get the guests. But he doesn't care because he just eats it. Like that's all he eats. It's like, well, I made paella. I like paella. It's always tasty. I can put an egg on it. You can put an egg on it. Um,
Right.
yeah, yeah, he just loves it. And so she'd bring home bags. Like the rice bags are like that big. They're huge.
Uh,
They're big bags, and she'd bring home a bag just full of paella for us. And so God, we ate paella all the time. But
I
the
like
best
it.
is when he does the seafood. Oh,
Oh, I bet.
mm, so good.
You're making me hungry, man.
I know, it's crazy. It's so we're locking down in Oregon for the next couple weeks.
I heard. Yeah,
Yeah,
I heard. I've got a buddy up in Washington too, up in Seattle, and they're closing in as well again. And
yeah.
yeah,
We've done pretty good up here.
good.
Considering, that half our population hates the mayor and doesn't want to follow the rules, or the governor rather, not the mayor.
That whole thing.
But we've done pretty good. And, granted, we're pretty isolated. We're not densely populated as a state,
Yeah.
so we've got that going for us. I hope we get through it, and hopefully the virus, they get a good vaccine going.
Yeah, it looks like there's two now. There's two really great possibilities out. Moderna, I think, came out. It was on the news hour tonight, and then Pfizer last week, and so it's looking good for all of that. But hopefully, it doesn't create the everybody going, oh, well, we can do whatever we want now.
Mhm.
Um,
So
yeah.
what have you done with the time and space that you've been cursed with or blessed with?
Well, I consider it a bit of a blessing. Um, it's been challenging because I am, nervous about the virus. I'm nervous about getting it, but I'm even more nervous about spreading it to my elders and people who are.
Yeah.
I think I'm what do they call, high risk as well, um, but I'm not in my 70s, and
Right.
I love people of all ages, and I do love people who are older than me, the generation above. I've spent a lot of time doing a lot of plays and staying with a lot of people who are a lot older than me, who have been kind enough to let me stay in their homes when I'm doing shows out of town.
Mhm.
Uh, and what I
Wouldn't that
know
just
this is
be the worst?
off.
Wouldn't that just be the worst to get like somebody you love getting
Yes,
sick? Yeah.
yes, exactly. So that's the kind of it. I'm still not completely, I'm still not at peace with that, obviously. Um, and but it took me about, I don't know, it took me a long time to be able to go, okay, this is this is a good time for me. I've always loved one of the things about my bread and butter being theater, when I quit my day job back when I lived in Seattle in the uh, 97 or something like that,
Hmm.
one of the things I've loved about doing theater is that I'll have a month in between shows, or a couple of weeks, or a couple of months.
Hmm.
And so I've just cherished that, just loved it. I love going out and finding an on-camera gig, or or traveling, visiting friends, visiting family, checking out different audition possibilities, all that stuff,
Yeah.
reading, hanging out with whoever, with my lady, uh, all of that. But this time around, it's been a little more challenging because of the given circumstances that are a part of it. And that said, I always knew there was going to be a time where I would have I've never had an extended period where I haven't had work. And, but I knew that there would come a time when that would happen. I didn't know it was going to be a pandemic that forced stuff that I had on the table to be lost to me. I didn't know that there was going to be a half a year, 9 months, whatever it's going to end up being. But I always knew that I had to squirrel away some nuts. So I squirreled away enough nuts to last me. And so, it's the fall is such a beautiful time, and with the leaves changing, and I'm just, it's so interesting to go outside. And as soon as I'm able to take a moment to get out of my head with all this pandemic stuff and everything that accompanies it, boom, I start hear the birds chirping, and then I see the trees. And like today, I'm on my bicycle, and riding past my old junior high, and I think we were called the Sky Hawks, and there's a hawk. I'm looking at a hawk, and I stop my bike. I started talking to it, and it didn't fly away. It's just that kind of stuff. We got this feral cat, and it's just wonderful to be able to hang out with it, and hang out with my mom and my brothers. And I have four brothers, but two of them live close by, and one of them has a daughter, and she's just turned 5 years old, and she'll let you know it, and she's just awesome. And so it's great, hanging out with my mom and talking to my dad a lot, and my relatives, and and getting to see friends. And it's just it's really, really special when I allow myself to not be in the fear of the pandemic and what accompanies it.
Yeah. There's two ways of taking this, isn't there? I lost my
Right.
job for 20 years.
Oh,
And
wow. Because of this.
yeah, yeah, they
Yeah.
were in 20 million a week at the lottery, which is where I worked. And so they
Hmm.
cut 60 jobs in one day, and they were cutting, it looked like they were cutting the big meat, right? Like anything that was earning a lot, they were getting rid of.
Ah,
Anything that wasn't malleable either, old timers are harder to move in a new direction. And I think I might have fit that category. Um, so yeah, after 20 years, but this is the first time I've actually had this space. My friends who are contractors, they have like what you're doing, it's a contract, and you do the job, and then you have time and space. And you
right.
do learn to be frugal with the excess because you don't know when the next thing's coming sometimes. So you kind of develop good habits.
Exactly.
Well, I had a consistent flow for a long time, and I expected to be working another 10 years. Right. And my wife expected that. And so now I've got this space. It's the first time I've had this space, and I've always wanted this space for years, but I never could afford the space. Um, so now I'm building me. I'm building my thing, and it's scary,
Great.
because
Yeah.
it is. I don't even know how I'm monetizing it yet. I've got a few ideas, but I don't know that they're going to work. You
Hmm.
know,
Hmm.
um, but that's the only way for me to be able to stay just doing this, and I want to get better at this.
Mm.
you know, and then add other things. I'm not good at doing too many things at once. Like if I had a regular job, I don't think I'd be good at this. I don't, one, it would be a pain in the ass to try to book because booking is a nightmare. This is the easiest thing I've ever booked because we booked it this morning. But usually there's a go back. There's a back and forth, and there's like, hey, when's good for you? When's it good for me? And I'm using 3, 4, 5 different sources. I might be talking to somebody on Twitter. I might be talking to somebody on Facebook, like itself. I might be talking to somebody in Messenger. And the easiest thing is if I can just pull it straight down to text messaging as soon as possible, because then it's a lot more traceable. Messages, if you haven't talked to somebody, in a week, that message that you had from them's way down the line on Messenger, you know?
Hmm.
So
Yeah,
it's hard to keep all of these pieces tied together.
right.
And it's, yeah, and I've got threads out there of people that I've been like, hey, let's do a thing. And they're like, yeah, let's do a thing. And then we don't solid. If I don't close it, like, let's get a time. Sometimes I lose the whole thing. And they're like, hey, oh yeah, we were going to do the thing, and it's like, yeah, let's do the thing. It's so crazy. It's, yeah. And I'm not good with, you know, uh, unraveling all this shit all the time. I just wish I had more simple methods and simple processes. And maybe if I write those out, I will have a better idea.
Yeah, you'll find it. I think, and I'm like you in a way. When back when I was still when I moved to Seattle, I got a good gig as an apartment manager for the first few years that I was there. So it was great. I could do plays, I could do on camera stuff, and I could still, I could paint the rooms, at 2 o'clock in the morning if I needed to.
Mhm.
But a few years in, I was like, oh man, I was never made for like working a major job and then doing plays at night. A lot of people around here do that, and more power to them, I guess. But
I don't know how to do it.
yeah, it's for me. My concentration needs to be on my work, and everything. I become a hermit and during a show, and that's because I believe that every performance there's a new audience that's coming in. So last night was fucking awesome, right? And that does not guarantee anything for tonight.
Nope.
And so I really, I mean, a lot of people do it different, and that's great for them. Like I have a buddy who I just talked. He's living over in Pennsylvania now, and we did a show in Spokane, Washington together. And every day, it was a 3-person show. It was a monster. God's Man in Texas, it was called, and he'd take off in the morning on these long, long hikes. And Tim, you want to go on a hike, man? Let's do it. And I said, no, man, I got to take a nap at 2 o'clock.
Yeah. Gotta be
Gotta
right.
get and then
I
I'm
got
going to be at the theater at 6:30 for the 8 o'clock curtain because I got to get, I'm preparing, and
Mhm.
but he didn't have to do that, and he was great. I'm just a different beast. It sounds like you and I are a little similar in our beast mode.
Yeah, you got to recognize the challenge is to really do art or to write or to act or to create anything really. There's a space that's required for me anyways, and
Mhm.
there's downtime, and I don't know where all this stuff comes from, but for me the muse comes after I've put all I kind of just throw everything in the blender, right? And then I keep kind of playing around with it until I may make sense of stuff. And it takes quietness and solitude to sort that stuff out.
Right.
And don't make no mistake. When I'm in a in a silent space, it's not really silent. There's a whole lot going on that I'm working through. Um, and I'm just starting to figure out how to articulate that on the page better. It's a new habit I'm working on. Is just putting stuff down on paper daily.
Mm-hmm. Cool.
Important thing, I think. Do you write, Tim? Do you write?
I like to write. Yes.
Yeah,
Um,
I get
it
that.
it's an interesting question for me because I'm currently I've got this big bookshelf of journals from throughout the years. And so what I'm doing right now is I've just started actually going through those journals. Like right now I'm in 1994. It was I had finished graduate school, moved to Chicago. 2 days after I got to Chicago, I went to Bratislava, Slovakia for the first International Festival of Theater Schools. That
Wow.
was for just a week's time. Came back to Chicago, and by the end of '94, around right before Thanksgiving, it started to get really cold on the L trains. They got those L trains, those above elevated trains in the
Yeah.
open air, and they had these heat lamps in Chicago. I was working 3 jobs, just trying to survive, and the heat lamps stopped making it all the way to the people. Like it was only like this far, but the wind was cutting through it and the heat wasn't, it was freezing. I was going, what am I doing here? I'm from the West Coast. And so I called my girlfriend at the time, and she was living in New York, and we moved to Seattle, and I was there for 10 years, and it was so much nicer. But during those times, I was keeping a journal probably from about 1980, I don't know, 87 or so to somewhere deep into the 2000s. I was keeping journals, and so when you ask, do you write? I'm like reading all this writing of mine, you know, journal entries that they are, but so it's really interesting reading those and kind of recapturing those times, and it's intense. Sometimes I can only like read like four pages of it, and I got to put it down because
Yeah.
it's like woo, bringing it on back.
Oh,
It's
the
it's
experience.
really really intense. Yeah.
Yeah, I've tried to journal as some people do as kind of a document of their time,
Hmm.
but I've never been able to do that. Like David, when he was younger, he always kept a journal. Today I did da da da, and I did this, and I did that, and I did this, and I did that, and that was my day. That was kind of,
Yeah.
and that's what I think most people do when they journal. I don't. I just write. What's going on? Blah, blah, just dump it. I just dump.
Yeah, I'm kind of a combination of those things. In fact, like a lot of the entries in '94 were dreams that I had,
Oh,
and
nice.
sometimes I could tell that like I've just woken up and turned on the light at 3 o'clock in the morning and like wrote down these kind of sentences, and then I fell back asleep and I had to kind of reconstruct them the
Yeah.
next day. And, so sometimes it would be stuff that went on during the day, but a lot of it had to do with feelings and feelings and family and love and all that jazz and survival and roommates and how, just it's just such a it's so interesting to go back to. Sometimes there were dates on there, sometimes there were not dates. So I'd have to kind of go, okay, so that one was 9:15, and this one is 9:21. So this one's somewhere in between. It
Uh,
wasn't a.
so you have to
Um,
kind of extrapolate what's going on here.
yeah.
1996. That's yeah. I haven't gone back to my journals. I have a few times, like I guess like my old military journals and stuff.
But you
And
have them.
I have some, I think,
You have
here
some.
and there. And I don't know. I think so self-righteous, such a goober, so full of myself. You know, when I look back at my young self, I'm like, I'm still that way. I'm probably still wrong about a lot of shit now. I just think I'm right as I thought I was then, you know? And it's just like, ah, we're so full of assumptions, aren't we? Like, how do we know what we know?
Mm,
Usually it's
mm.
like some guy told us something or we read it once and we haven't corroborated it with other sources of information.
Well,
Sometimes,
that is a tough one, isn't it? There are certain, I think you're right in a sense. There are certain things that I just kind of had assumed over the years, and there's a lot based on those assumptions, based on something that somebody said sometime
hmm,
at the right or at just the right or wrong time.
when you're ready
To
for the information, yeah,
yeah,
possibly. Yeah.
it's like,
Yeah.
oh, what? Why have I always thought that? Like
Uh-huh.
and it's also interesting when that happens to me. Like that's exciting as well. When I go, wait a minute, what the what the fuck is that? What? So why do I think that?
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
That's
Yeah,
weird.
why do I think that? That's a good question to ask ourselves sometimes. Like, well, I believe this, or I think I believe this. So why do I believe this? What about this rings true to me? You know?
Yeah, yeah,
And it's hard to tell, especially if you're th- for me, if they're trying to convince me, I'm already suspecting. Like, why you're working so hard. Does that make sense?
it makes complete sense. And I would go. I've had a couple of things just to riff off of that. Is that one is it's taken me a long time to like like reviews. I never read reviews for the longest time, because I was afraid how they would affect me, whether it was a positive or negative. I didn't want to be. It's somebody coming to see a show on a particular night, and all of that. It's just, whereas I've been working on it for 3 4 weeks, and have been in performance for a couple of weeks, and then somebody swings in and sees the show once and writes something about it, and therefore it's true. And the same thing goes with anything. Something's written down. The assumption in my mind has always been, oh, if it's written down, then it's true.
Right. If it's
And
on the
then
internet, it's true.
yeah, so it's been interesting being able to wean myself off of that. And the other thing that is difficult to wean myself off of is the different masks, not COVID masks, but the different masks that humans wear in daily life. And and since I and over the years, probably in my 40s is when everything really kind of came to a head for me, of being able to like recognize, oh, there are a lot of salespeople out there who aren't
What?
looking out for anything but their own best interest. And I mean, I did the play Death of a Salesman, and maybe I learned something in that. I played Biff in Death of a Salesman. I was very lucky to be able to do that. And right before that, I played a politician, a guy running for president out in Berkeley. And maybe I learned some stuff there, because I started to recognize, oh, these people, there are a lot of really, really slick, good salespeople. And in the theater, there are a lot of really good salespeople. In the entertainment industry, a lot of really good salespeople, because they can make you think that they are just the sweetest people, and are just heartfelt, labor of love, man, labor of love. And this is, and but they're not necessarily looking out for your best interests. And some of them, and a lot of them, genuinely are looking out for everyone's best interest, including mine. So that's the other thing to keep in mind,
Hard to
is
parse it
just
out sometimes.
actual heartfelt. There's so much wonderful heartfelt stuff going on, that I just have to be, I have to be able to learn more and more about how to wean out the other stuff, whatever reason it's there for them and for me, of course. But
Well, it's all
Wow.
based on authenticity, isn't it? I mean, even the auth this the really good salesman, his goal is to assimilate some sort of reality that looks as if authenticity is happening,
Right, 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 right.
right? So they're selling it and they're playing as if, because it's not truth. If it's sales, something's not being shown. There's
Yeah,
some
you're bringing me to Glenn Ross when Ricky Roma is laying out the sale for the whatever, the marshland in Florida he's selling to this guy who just is, you can tell he's desperate enough that he's gonna go for it.
he's going to do it. He's got to save his ass. Got to save his ass. And that's the thing. Capitalism's been amazing in terms of, when you think of the dark ages and this type of thing, but and feudalism, the breaking away from an overlord and the ability to be individualized and to create your own capital has been amazing at that level.
Mm.
But at the other level, you got to kind of eat some folk on the way. You got to eat some people up.
Yeah, and I've never been able to. I don't like that, and I've never personally been able to do it, and and I don't want to do it. But yeah, that's I don't like that part of it.
No,
Do
I don't.
you?
No, no. It's definitely something that eats at me. If that's the challenge of life in general, is there is consumption and you do have to eat, you know, and
Yeah.
and everything requires some sort of energy. So anything I'm consuming implies that I'm consuming somebody else's energy. Whether it's the car I drive, that all the people who built it made that car. It's their energy. It's the energy of the earth that holds it together, all the materials and such.
Hmm.
So every act of consumption, and we have to consume to live, is some sort of destruction. It's a destructive act.
You think?
Well, it's necessary though, right?
I mean, the people who are building the car, hopefully that they've got a good enough employer that they're getting something out of the deal too.
Well, yeah, and that's the thing, is everybody's getting something, but you got to get your margins. That's the thing about capitalism. Is yeah,
Hmm.
it cost me $4, but I'm going to sell it to you for 10 because I'm going to get $6 in the margin. You know, and the $6 is a go fuck yourself. That's it.
Well, that's part of the reason I joined. I finally I did 11 shows in Spokane, Washington, and it was some of the best theater I've ever done, and it was beautiful. I lived with an 80-something-year-old retired lieutenant colonel in his basement, and he was very conservative. I'd come home at 2 o'clock in the morning. He'd be ready to start talking politics, playing Scrabble, and helping him with the crossword puzzle, and but some of the best work I ever did in my life, and uh, and when I moved to California, back to California, I chose the right time to join the Stage Actors Union because I didn't want to. Spokane was glorious because I was a paid employee as a non-union actor. I was getting paychecks. I was getting I was taxed and everything. I was not an independent contractor, and that was awesome. That's unique. I don't know how many theaters have done that, but that's the only theater that I've worked at where I was an actual employee as a
Okay.
non-union actor. But since I moved here, I decided to join the union. I got an opportunity, and that's been great because I know whenever I'm doing a show that you know, I've got uh, I've got a paycheck coming in every week, so I'm getting something
For your time.
out of the deal monetarily, and that's important to me. It is one of the most important things about being a professional theater artist for me is that I'm compensated for my work and my talent and time, and it's great because theaters, well, at least when I'm in their shows, they are so they. I believe them. I believe that they're very grateful to have me, and I see that with the other actors and technicians and the stage manager and the lighting. They are grateful, and they are demanding, but at the end of the week, it's so great on whatever it is on Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday. They hand you the envelope, and in that envelope is a check for your weekly. It's my existence is a very frugal existence, and those paychecks are not huge, but they're paychecks, man, and they.
Yeah. Well, you've chosen it. I mean, you knew that going in. You're like, I love the life, and I know I will probably never get rich, but to live
Right.
my passion is more important than
That was
wealth.
my dream. Yeah, that was my dream. At some point, I decided my dream was, I said, I don't necessarily want to be famous. I don't necessarily want to be rich. I want to make my living as an actor. And I did get that wish
Yeah.
for what it's worth.
Yeah. How many plays do you think you've done? Could you count? Do you have a count or?
I don't have a count. I should count.
Yeah.
I should count. That's a good one, Gary. I'll do that.
There's probably up in the hundreds, I would think.
I would think.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would
How long have
think.
you been doing this? 35 years? 30 years?
Well,
You said you started really young, 14?
summer before eighth grade at Peppermint Palace Community Theater, Angeles and the Lion. Yeah, so summer before eighth grade, and well, let's see, that was what, 70, I don't know, what was that, 77, 78, 80, 81, something like that, maybe, or early 80s, yeah, 80, like 81, 82 or something like that, through now, maybe,
Long haul.
kind of average 4 shows a year every year, whatever that is.
Yeah. You've acted with some great people, I imagine.
Oh yeah,
Blow your mind.
yeah.
Yeah.
Wonderful actors. Yeah, that's what was wondering. You know Zaidi, right? You mentioned his name,
Mhm.
for example. Yeah, Zaidi and Dylan and Galen and his sister Bridget and all those cats from cats. All those
All
cats
those
and
cool
kittens
cats from
from Rosa High
the
School.
SRT, yo.
Yeah, from and junior high, even junior high was great. It had great teachers, Miss Lehman in junior high, and then Beth in high school and undergraduate college. And
Beth is like her. I remember going to her house for one of the after parties. I just went with David, and I didn't know anybody. I think I just met Zaidi, and I went there. She was like that quintessential bohemian hippie mama drama teacher, as I recall. Is that?
she is. The only thing I would add to that is that her talent was unprecedented. Like she there's another drama teacher who has stuck with it through the years as well, Amy from Annalee, and the two of them, they had a very healthy, wonderful competition. It seemed to me, and they were very different, and but our shows were wonderful, and like when you say working with really great talented people, I mean, I just sometimes when I'm working with certain actors, I can feel that when I feel that they're working with me, when we're working together, and one of us isn't trying to go, let me get in front, let me get, when I feel like we're working together on whatever the moment is of the play, that is always so, it's just beautiful and special, and it just raises the conscious reality of the room. It just it brings it to that place, that concentrated orange juice place that
Yeah.
theater is. It's yeah.
I like when I'm acting with somebody and you get to that point where acting disappears and both of you are being the people, the characters, and you're not even aware of it. Like at some level, you're just there. Both of you are there, and it's happening. And it's so hard to do to get to those points. When you're working with a small theater and everybody's just having a fun time and they're learning and they're getting good, but every now and then, like you click, and you're just like you're there, and it's almost like you're not there. You know what I mean? It's like you come out of the scene and you're like a fly on the wall, and you're going, well, shit, look at you down there. That's happening, and it's fleeting. That point. And if you go there too long, you can fucking lose the whole thing. But a few times I've gotten to that point, and granted, the first time I went, holy shit, you're doing it, and I lost it, right? Then I remember going back there again at one point where it was just like, I'm out of it. And then I stepped outside as if I'm an audience member. I'm looking at myself on stage and I go, you better get the fuck back in, because you can't look at yourself from there and stay in. But it
Yeah,
was
kind of parallels
it
with
was a
kind
weird
of
space.
kind of meditation, kind of a yeah.
You ever
Yeah.
done that? Like look at yourself from outside this, like you're on stage and it's almost sudden you project yourself out, look at yourself on stage, and it's just like weird.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, probably many times.
Mm,
Nothing specific, I'm willing to admit at this time.
yeah. It's such a nakedness on stage, isn't it? I mean, at
Can be.
some level, you have to be completely present and there, and I don't know, everybody's watching you every moment, every nuance. They're watching you, and you can't think about that because that's paralyzing.
Yeah.
Is that scary for you when you recognize that everybody's watching me?
You know, I don't know quite how to answer that. It's the majority of my plays I do in smaller houses. So most of the plays I've done, I'd probably say 70% of the plays I do are plays where I have kind of a 3/4 audience of some kind or another, and I can see half the audience at any time if I'm looking. And sometimes you're talking to a character, and there are 5 people's sets of legs right there,
Mm-hmm.
and there are their faces, and you can see when they turn to say something to someone or whatever. So it's an interesting dynamic, and comes back to the beginning of our conversation, which is the necessity of the audience, and how, I mean, somewhere in my schooling, with the whole Polish theater thing, it was
Is that Meisner?
this was Grotowski
Grotowski.
work that we did, Polish laboratory theater stuff, but the necessary elements of a of the play are, one performer and one audience member. Like that's all it takes. But there has to be at least one person observing, um, and they're part of the reality of what's going on. So it's also, sometimes, the audience has a certain power, but sometimes I have to, it's also nice to, it's such an interesting thing because you can feel them and you can hear them and everything. And yet you're in this room with this other person or with these other people. And that's the given circumstances that you're dealing with within the structure of the play as written, usually. But in performance, there's that added element, and it's so wonderful. It's why it's wonderful. And yeah, and to your point, yeah, and it's it's there's a certain element of scariness to it, but that's when it comes down to it, I realize that acting is not, I'm not a doctor doing surgery on someone, and I don't have to go home after a show and wonder whether or not I um, killed a person or not, or didn't do the best job I could on their knee.
Right.
And I'm sure doctors have to, like in MASH, they have to kind of inure themselves. I don't know if that's the right word, but they have to, they have to be able to roll up their imaginary window on that so that they can survive and live their own life. But I realize that, hey man, if I don't, I'm going to do everything I can to make it a good show. And hopefully I will. And if I don't that particular night, that sucks, and I don't like it, and I get a little pissy about that. But I'll still sleep at night, and I'll wake up the next day ready to do the show the next day, because those people, they saw what we had that night. They had a unique experience with us.
That's Emma. That's our dog, Emma. She's.
Hi, Emma.
Settle down. Simmer down. We're good. Settle down. Simmer down. We're good. Relax. That's a dog. She's hypervigilant. Hey. She's hypervigilant.
How many years have she been doing stage work?
Hey, me? What?
How many years has Emma been doing stage work?
She's really she's young at it. She's a couple years in. Really doesn't recognize that we have an audience. She's just gonna act out. Yeah, she's a good little dog, but yeah, she's a little hypervigilant. It's in the breeding, I think. She's trying to protect us. She's a protector. Yeah. So you get to play a lot of good characters, and throughout your life, and I know that I've played some characters in my time that they teach you things. Who's your favorite character that you've ever had to play that kind of you said, I'm going to take some of this guy with me?
Well, fairly recently I got to play Atticus Finch.
Oh, you can't beat that.
It's hard. It is hard to beat that. That was special, and it's special to be able to.
Which version? The old version or the new? The Broadway version. New.
I guess the version that came out before what's his face just did it. Yeah, so the previous one, but it was still the same. It was the words of it was his. It was it. They were her words.
Her words.
As written, and yeah, and it was special to find that part of me.
Yeah.
But it's so interesting to. I often think of myself as an actor as Tim is the trunk of the tree, and all the branches are all the different potential roles that I have. And so it was really special to be able to go over to that branch and make it my trunk for a while, and be that man, and realize that I am him to some extent. I am him, And then there are other roles where I recognize that that's a branch that I, sometimes I have to find branches off another tree and connect them to my tree because they aren't me at all.
Little grafting.
Little grafting, yeah. Sometimes I have to do a little grafting, because so it's interesting to play the very human good guy, and it's very interesting to play the very human bad guy and everything in between. But yeah, that's one off the top of my noggin. That
Yeah, he's. What about Atticus Finch? Do you really love? I mean, it's just what do you think? It just makes him. He's complex. Those were complex times, and he takes a complex position.
he's for me. What I love about him that was wonderful to marry to what I feel about myself in my best sense, or in one of my best senses, is he is he's always he's a truthful man who knows that he is imperfect in his truth and always is striving for a more, he wouldn't say this, but a more beautiful truth, and knows that there are things that he has to work on as well as his children and his community, and he is quick to humanize everyone and to see that there is a human being inside even some of the most outwardly despicable looking and seeming humans.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Yes, it does actually a lot. And for the time that came out, Harper Lee was, jumping into the game there and really putting some ideas out there that we thought we were fixing, you know. But it is that basic humanity that you talk about, and seeking the higher truths and seeking the higher beauty that I think make great people. And it's not that, given the situations, it's not always going to happen. You're not always going to find the truth and the beauty. But as long as you keep moving that direction, you're going to get closer. And sometimes the situation and the time and the structures of the reality are not ready for the truth.
Right.
There's a lot of connection that we need in this world, that at a better level. And you say you don't fix the knees, and you're not a heart surgeon or anything like that, but connection. There's a reason people go out to the theater, and there is a connection there that is different than anything else in the entertainment world. There's a reason people go out to live music. It's very similar, but it's a different thing. But it's still connection.
Yeah, I think I totally agree. And the reason I still love doing it to this day is I feel that I'm a different, I'm different than any other actor out there. I mean, I assume that most actors feel that about themselves, and that's a good thing. I applaud that idea, and I applaud it of myself as well. That I'm a unique actor. I'm a unique talent, and therefore I continue.
Right.
I'm not saying I'm the best or the worst. I'm just saying that I'm unique.
You know how you catch a unique actor? Unique up on them. Worst joke ever. Ha ha. Oh man. So I don't have a question. Do you have a question for me? Ooh, we're gonna flip the script here.
Was that a piano behind you?
Yes.
No, it is.
Yeah.
Wow. Do you play?
No. I can goof off a little bit. I'm into the big instruments like the ukulele and the drums. I play
Oh,
hand, I
you
play
play
hand,
those?
I play ukulele and I play hand drums. Yeah.
Oh, you and David both have the proclivity. Did you have that as kids? Did you play any?
Dave did younger. I've just taken it up, and that's why ukulele. I played, I goofed around on guitar for years, but my hands just never liked it very well. I never could get to the notes fast enough, I felt. And I got a ukulele on my 50th birthday, and I just fell in love with it. It was so simple. I could get to the ukulele allowed me to learn music. I didn't have to learn the instrument. I didn't have to spend so much time learning the instrument. So the notes came easier so I could learn notes, and I could from there then I could kind of start to understand songs and structure of songs. And I still know now. I know I don't know shit, but I've learned a lot, and it's been really fun.
That's cool. I've had the opportunity to. I'm not a musician myself, but I've had to play musicians in several plays. I've had to play. I've gotten to play a little bit of guitar in 3 shows. I don't play guitar, but for those shows, I played to the extent that I did, and I learned how to. I've got one because of that. I played a xylophone briefly, and in another one, I played a trumpet player in another. So I had to learn how to, take apart and clean the trumpet and blow.
Yeah, yeah. That's not easy. Learning
Fortunately,
how to blow in a trumpet's not easy.
well, fortunately for that show, Sideman, it was called. That was a Spokane show. That was a special show. That was a very special show. But the playwright wrote it for actors, not for not for musicians, and so therefore, um, you had to study and learn, and we took some lessons, but we didn't play. It was a play. It wasn't a it wasn't a jazz performance. So, but what was really cool about that show is,
Yeah.
well, I'll tell you, is the Ken Burns, he came out with all those PBS documentary
Yeah.
series,
Jazz,
and
baseball.
yeah. So I saw baseball, and then when the jazz one came out, I was literally in rehearsals for this play about jazz sidemen. And so we were rehearsing during the day, and at night I'd come home, and Al, the 80 something year old retired lieutenant colonel, he would let me watch tonight's episode of Jazz, the
Nice.
Ken Burns jazz doc. So I was
In
engrossed even more than I could have possibly hoped with that world. It was so great. It was so special.
Did you play a known jazz player that they were doing a biography on, or was it just
This
a
the
jazz player?
so the play is called Sideman, and so it's a play literally about like Glenn Miller's sidemen, like all these players,
All
all
the
these all these like in LA, Brian Wilson, when he was doing Pet Sounds, they had the Wrecking Crew. They did a documentary on it, and so these are all these people that you don't know, they aren't on the album cover.
right.
They And so that's who I was playing. I was playing
They
a
do sets. They play
unknown.
sets. They're gig workers.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, exactly.
yeah, yeah. You're a gig worker. How did that work for employment? And you're in the union, so unemployment, I guess.
Yeah, the all my jobs are, I'm an employee, so I'm not. It's not like a Uber driver where it's a 1099. It's a
Right.
W-2.
Okay.
So my paychecks, I'm getting taxed.
Yeah.
So yeah, so that it was a bit more complex for this for when the pandemic happened
You
because
had to
the
go through
job,
the meds and all of that stuff.
yep,
Yeah.
and the job that was coming up was canceled 4 days before we started rehearsals, and the start of rehearsals is when we signed the contracts. But to the credit of the of Congress or whoever did it, they and the state of California, they had a thing where if you were about to start work and the pandemic made that so that it didn't happen, tell us what it was. We'll check it out, and if it's true, then you're good. So that's been a saving grace that is about to end, but it's been a saving grace.
Yeah. Do you think we'll open up? So I hope we can open up soon, and you know, we can make some people can start making art again and money. And
Yeah, we'll see.
so, what have you spent this time doing in particular?
Well, I'm keeping myself in shape. That's kind of the most important thing for me to do, because as my brother John told me at some point about 10 years ago, um, he was talking about how he exercises. He says that's the best pill you can take for, you
Yeah.
know, for stressful times, is to get out there and move if you can. And so I've really taken that to heart. And I've got a couple of bicycles, and I get on them as often as possible. I I cook every day. I cook all my meals, um, and so I cook for myself. I'll cook for my mom. I'll cook for my girlfriend, and and I spend a lot and I do a lot of work around the house, in the garden.
Yeah.
Mom's shoulder's a little bummy right now, so I'm insisting on doing all as much of the labor as possible, and so never had a problem making sure that there's stuff to do. I'm never bored, that's for sure. I'm always interested. Yeah.
That's important. I can't imagine what the uncurious mind is going through right now. I imagine, if you really have to get all of your stimulation from outside, that's this has got to be hell for those folks.
Mm-hmm.
You
Mm-hmm.
know?
Yeah. 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 It's got to be especially tough to toe the line that needs to be towed,
Hmm. Yeah,
for
but
sure.
we got to do that. We got to do that. What if you could do one thing to make the world a better place using your talent, skills, and abilities? What would that be?
That's a tough one. I looked at that. You sent me that question today, and
That's my favorite one. It always kind of the thing I like about the question is that it brings it back to you, and so I always want it to be you don't have to change the world, right? But we all can do something in ourselves that kind of can have an impact, right? Make it better.
yeah, I think my talents as a person, as myself, and as a in my chosen profession, I have the ability to keep making myself more positively human and humane and heartfelt, and a good thinker and feeler of um, of the to bring it back to Brian Wilson, of the good vibrations, that I can bring bring the good vibrations, even when I'm playing a role or in a space that aren't completely good, that those elicit more good vibrations for those, for myself, within myself, and for those around me, and hopefully that the butterfly that whose wings are flying out of me are not creating a tidal wave across the other side of the world, but are making a flower grow on the other side of the world, and somebody is discovering the beauty of that flower for the first time. You know, that's where I had like my particular talents to affect the world and the universe in a positive way. And I like that sometimes I feel like I'm doing that, and I know it's very much a work in progress. With this Feldenkrais work that I've done a little bit of, there's like the idea of, like, if you got a pain in one of your shoulders and you're putting all your concentration on trying to make that shoulder better, and you're putting all your concentration into that shoulder, you know, that's hurting. And what I kind of learned, and what I've learned has helped a little bit for me, is that pay a little bit of attention to the shoulder that is not in pain, and let that shoulder that feels good and is not injured blossom and affect the injured shoulder, and say, hey, it's possible to feel good again, other shoulder.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that there's legitimacy in that.
Interesting. That's an interesting concept. I like that. It kind of sets the norm higher, doesn't it? It's like, oh, you want to feel this good, just feel this good. It's right there. Just do it.
Yeah, it's right on the other side of your fucking head, dude.
Yeah.
I say to myself.
Yeah. What is the most challenging thing for you? It's kind of just been something you've always wanted to do, but have never really done. I guess, yeah, that's the question. What is something that you've really, really wanted to do, but never really have done?
I haven't been to Ireland or Switzerland, which are two places that my ancestors are from.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd like to go to the British Isles and all of the British Isles, but Ireland in particular, and then also go over to Switzerland, the Italian-speaking part of Switzerland. That's where some ancestors are from, and feel the earth at those places. And never done that.
I wonder if you can feel like a connection when you do that. Like if there is something inside your body that your genetic code goes, oh, I know you. Yeah, there's familiarity.
Yeah.
You know, I wonder if that happens for folks. You know, and even, you know, now that you bring the thought in, now you could project it into the situation, be like, oh, yeah, my genetics knows I'm here, and I feel really good about being here because my genetics knows I'm here, you know. But I do feel like if I were to walk, say, in the Azores, where my grandfather's from, or in Iceland, where somebody's from that apparently, you know, is in my genome there, or Wales or Ireland or England, you know, I feel like there's a part of me that I'd start seeing people that have some of me in them, right? Like if I went back to the same places in Wales where there's some of my genes, I imagine I'd start seeing some of my face in some of those people.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Just genetically. Like
right.
you would be, you'd see that, the Italian speaking Swiss. So you would see them and they would be like,
Hey,
oh,
I know that nose. I
yeah,
know that.
that guy,
Yeah,
he looks like one of
absolutely.
us. He's one of my people. And it'd be interesting to be around that.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Huh. So if you could tell the world one thing today, like it's kind of stressful times. People don't know what's up and down. Everybody's kind of coming at the world in from different viewpoints. And it's almost like there's two really different belief systems at this point. What could we say that would just help at this point?
Well, I guess the best way for me to put it is like a recent, it's a kind of an anecdote, but it's based on something that just happened. It's, which is, an old high school friend has, I guess, a bunch of apples in her orchard, and she and her husband picked just pounds and pounds and pounds of apples, because otherwise they're going to fall and just kind of rot on the ground, or and they'd have to clean them up. And but they
Mhm.
went and picked them, and she put out a notice to some friends and said, hey, if you want some apples, we're going to pick them, and put them out on the in the driveway or wherever, and come and get them if you'd like. Just let us know, and we'll let you know when they're out.
Mhm.
And and she did. And then I wasn't able to do it that day, and another friend said, my friend Hillary said, hey, I'm going there, do you want me to pick up a bag for you?
Yeah.
And I was like, that would be great. And so that's kind of the anecdote, and so it was just, it was just so special. And so we're in the fall, and it's seasonal, and the holidays are coming up, and a lot of people aren't able to get together to do the same things that they would like to do during the holidays, and be with the people that they'd like to be with, and have the big turkey dinner with a whole bunch of people or whatever it is. And So this gesture of 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 providing apples was, I don't know. And I guess, God, I didn't think about this. It's like the kid who goes to the classroom to their favorite teacher and says, and gives the teacher the apple. It's like that old thing, I love my teacher, and I'm going to give her an apple because she's so awesome, and the teacher appreciates it, and that's it. It's like, if we could all just be all think of ourselves as a student who wants to give an apple to our teacher. That's what.
Yeah. And everybody's our teacher, aren't they?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. So even that
So
guy that you don't agree with, that you really can't even get past, like some of the logic, give him an apple.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And I'll give him the one with the worm in it,
Well, the worm will get there. Karma's
because
coming.
I'm still a little bit of a dick in
A
that
little
way.
bit of a dick. All right. Well, thank you so much, Tim. I've
My
really
pleasure.
enjoyed our time together.
Oh, it's great, Gary.
Yeah.
Thanks for thinking of me and asking. That was really sweet. It was fun talking to you.
Yeah. I
I
hope you get to see some of or listen to some of the shows. Most of them are just audio podcasts.
Yeah,
Um, but I've talked to some very interesting people. And earlier when you're saying like every show I do, I kind of just feel in love with it at some level.
yeah,
That's true of this. Like people go, well, which one's your favorite? I'm like, I, I like them all at some level. I know some of them have better audio quality and some of them have better stories at some level, but I really like them all because the end goal that I have for this is to have open dialogue. And through open dialogue to maybe explore the human condition and help us get to a better place with each other and ourselves. And I don't know how that happens through dialogue. I just know that eventually it does, that people hear something or see something and it clicks. And you can hear the same thing 1,000 times. Self-help books all say the same shit. But, they say it in different ways. And there might be the one that's saying it in a way that you get. And you're like, that's the one that gets me. Today's the day. Today, I do a thing that I've never done before, that it's time to start doing it.
Yeah, I get that. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
It's good to connect with you too, Gary.
Thank you, brother. Y'all subscribe. What do they call it? Download. Yeah, you got to download the podcast. We're coming out in the YouTube world. Like if you're here, you've already seen that. But I do want to let you know that we're going to keep this going. And if you'd like to support the podcast, you can. And we'll be running a campaign for that eventually. Tim, go ahead and share this on your social media. I'll be giving you a link here soon.
Great.
In the next day or two. We'll do a video one and I'll do an audio one you can listen to this on Spotify, Apple Podcast if you have that kind of phone, or Google Podcast if you have that kind of phone. So, yeah. Y'all have a great day. Man. Thank you, Tim. Bless you. Have a great and wonderful life. And hopefully next time you come up this way, we can get together. If I go down that way, be good.
That'd be awesome. I'd love that.
Thank you very much.
Learning, listening.